Morven, thanks for giving me the time just to run through and ask a few questions with you. Obviously, we've done this with a few of our guys just to get your impression of and testimony out there of your kind of journey, what you've done through your career, where you've been, how that's affected personal life, what opportunities it's given from you, and other kind of considerations that you've had to make. Do you want to just kind of start at the start actually and just tell us a wee bit about when you graduated and what your kind of initial experiences were in dentistry?
Yeah, I graduated from Glasgow Dentistry School and Glasgow Uni and in 2010, and I fell straight into, didn't really land a very good VT practice, and well, a good VT practice, but I just didn't feel I had that good support or mentorship along with it. And then landed a pretty basic NHS job, and I didn't really have any sort of anyone to look up to in it and any sort of mentorship there either, and it just felt very dry, and you're sort of plodding along in the 9 to 5 and just ploughing out the NHS numbers, and I really lost passion in dentistry, to be honest. I just didn't really see what all the hype was about. So I decided that I wasn't happy there, so something needed to change. So I made a big decision to go and work in Melbourne in Australia, and that was a completely turn on its head of dentistry, obviously, from the NHS into private. It was a brand new squat practice, and I had some great mentors there, and they really guided me through a completely new world of dentistry, dealing with sort of health insurances and just a different quality of patient and what they wanted, and sort of the general oral hygiene and dental care and everything was completely different. And also using therapists over there as well was a whole new therapist model I was working with. So learned so much over there. And it's amazing to think of what would happen if I hadn't gone. Then of course time came to got engaged, so time to come home, and so I was there in Melbourne for 4 years, and visa was coming to an end, and some family sort of health concerns and stuff, so brought us home. And while I was in Australia, I had a Zoom interview with you lovely guys.
Can I stop you there? I just want to go back a wee bit, because I'm the next stage is obviously where when I first met you and things. It's still the best associate interview that I've ever been a part of is still yours, and it was the way that I could see that your mindset was a perfect fit for us. You did a lot of clinical training, but you did a lot of, and in your practice, and I see what they've taken you through, a lot of the kind of personal development and understanding your own personality type, understanding how that fits into a team, and understanding other people. You really have a lot of empathy for your team, and that mindset for growth. Is that something that comes naturally to you? Or do you think that that's something that was put in front of you and you could naturally latch onto it? Is just kind of give my thoughts there.
It was definitely something that they had in Australia, all had already set up, and I walked into it, and it was part of the job that you had to do XYZ training. But I got it, and I could completely see why that made sense and why that worked, sort of from the morning huddle, so doing a huddle in the morning, to communication skills, to how to, not ethical sales, but sort of how to communicate things correctly with patients to make them understand treatment need and the quality of the treatment you provide, and how those skills are just key, and it's actually just made sense. So I jumped on board with it. And then when I found that you guys were sort of similar mindset, it was amazing to find sort of a practice and group of practices that were also following that path.
Great, brilliant. Yeah, you certainly brought a lot with that, and the big part of the mindset of and growth opportunities. Another thing that struck a chord with me is you read a lot in the same way as I do. It's personal development and mindset and opportunities and relationships and people and things. Is that something that you've always done? Is that something that you continue to do? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's something I've always done. I think as well. Time is so precious, and trying to make the day as productive as possible. And one way to sort of switch off is to read, but when you're reading, why not read something that's also going to help you grow or develop in some way? And yeah, it's amazing how the books that I've been reading have sort of changed from sort of just from communication, so your basic books like how to win friends and influence people.
Yep.
To now it's sort of taught, and now I'm more looking at public speaking and being a leader and doing that. So it's funny seeing the journey of books that I'm reading as well.
And it perfectly fits with the journey in your career, which we'll come to in a wee sec. So, okay, great. So you're in Australia, you realise you're coming back into kind of west of Scotland, and you find out that we're looking for an associate at Dentistry on the Clyde. Do you want to just tell about your process, what kind of attracted you to coming to work there, and your kind of initial thoughts when you got in?
Well, I knew I wasn't going to go back to what I'd left when I was working in Glasgow. So I was looking for private, but understanding that I probably would have to do a little bit of NHS at the same time, but something that had private with a good scope for growth as well within that. While I was in Australia, I got qualified in Invisalign and sedation, and so that's something that and facial aesthetics, so it's something I wanted to be able to apply straight away as well. So a practice that was open to providing those sorts of treatments as well. And as well, I think I'd realised making that transition from the NHS in Australia, the importance of having a good mentor and leader along with that as well.
Okay, perfect. And in terms of what the practices had provided you then, and obviously it's gone through an evolution with more team members and TCOs, what do you think the kind of key ingredients there to success that you see in where you are delivering clinical dentistry now in comparison to the kind of typical way of doing it in Scotland and in the UK? What do you think the differences are?
So yeah, I think reinvesting, so making sure the practice is continuously growing and not going stale. So, okay, what can we offer next and what can we do next? And rather than being like, right, we're pretty happy here, we're ticking along nicely, just think, okay, how can we make it more and how can we offer more treatments and more of a service to our patients? And that's how it's constantly expanding and growing and growing.
Yeah, I think it's something that gets reflected on along the whole group is always that kind of, some people can look at it negatively and say, oh, is it never enough? You've been too experimental, but that's not the case. The way we see things is that always have a future brighter than your past, and that excites people with positive mindset, positive steps forward, and it just stops us going stale. And is that something that you feel is kind of fairly present throughout the group?
Yeah, and I think you can't be scared of change. I think a lot of practice are scared of change and what that's going to bring, and maybe some team members as well could be a little bit scared whenever we introduce something new, but then they see the total value that it brings further down the line.
Yeah, and actually I suppose that's something that I really see in our kind of long-term existing practices, that they become very used to that development. We know we'll be informed, we know we'll be part of it. They know that they can feed back if something's not working so well, and actions will be taken. Whereas some of the new practices that join our group, we maybe see some of the difficulties there because they have maybe just been fairly, a steady practice, but not a lot of change over the last kind of 5 to 10 years. So that's great. So you've come in, you've started working at Dentistry on the Clyde. Do you want to just tell us a wee bit about the progress from when you started off working as an associate and where you are now, first of all, in terms of the clinical dentistry that you provide?
Clinical dentistry has grown massively, hugely for me actually, and it's something that with the one-to-one reviews that we have for clinicians, sort of looking at where you want to grow, and that's always been good to have someone that's going to drive you and push you to do more qualifications and more education. And so from starting with predominantly NHS with a bit of private, and then I came back from my first maternity leave and went purely private, and then now really focusing on implants now as well. So it's been a really nice transition along the way from mainly NHS private to now really focusing and being able to delegate other treatments to other clinicians and focusing on implants now. Yeah,
so you've really gone through that process, and that's where you say it's very easy for you to come to change, but you go through points and you hit a landmark, and then, okay, well, what's the next landmark that I wish to go for? And it's not a case that, well, we say, or you want to, we've got the end in sight and everything is decided from day one. It's a gradual process for you, and you, rather than anybody saying to you, here, Morven, here's the dentistry that you're going to do, you've found something that you're passionate about, that comes easy to you, that you get excited by doing, in that teaching form. Do you think that's a fair comment to make?
Yeah, I think it's important to have passion what you're doing. So you look forward to going to clinic every day. You're not sort of dragging yourself in. You're sort of excited for what your book looks like. And even looking at my book is completely changed from that book of NHS where you've got hundreds of patients in a day, 15-minute appointments, to now going in and you've got 3 or 4 really long patients of really satisfying treatment that you're providing. Has been a nice transition as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And obviously, you're, with the direction you're heading, you're really kind of blazing a trail for women in implant dentistry, which is not the kind of typical demographic. And I know we're doing some big things within SmileFast implants to develop that side for you. Do you feel that there's been barriers to you, and do you feel that either the company or anybody who's kind of helped you along that journey to break down any of those barriers, to make sure that women in implant dentistry, and then with what you can deliver in the practice has really made a difference?
The one thing that's actually been a saving grace, and I do tend to turn around and say thank you to them, is so I signed up to do the year's course with SmileTube, and a month later I found out I was pregnant, and I contacted them and said, well, I'm not going to cope with this because I'm going to be pregnant and doing a postgrad qualification. And I called them and I said, can I defer a year? And they said, no, you can. And it's the best thing that they said, because it meant I just had to get it done, and it was fine. It was totally manageable. I think we just have this perception that if you're pregnant and having a child that you can't do anything like that. And I was actually finding within the sort of the clinical days that were involved, they were all very flexible with sort of my due date and everything like that as well. And it then meant that after maternity leave, I could then just come back and get really focused in. I should say some landmarks come along which make you change the way you practice and your hours and things like that. And then actually, I think, again, a lot of women are sort of not interested in implant dentistry because they think it is so time consuming, but actually it's a really, if you're planning on having a family, it's actually a good qualification to get under your belt, because it's perfect, because you go back to work. I now work 3 days a week, but I'm earning more than I was before I went on maternity leave, because the work that you're doing is of such higher value. So it is a perfect qualification for middle-aged women.
Great. So yeah, I mean, it's something that there should be no barriers, and that's a big part of what SmileFast want to be about, is breaking down those barriers, and also the kind of old style of teaching that some of which I certainly experienced, where teaching through humiliation. Although the teachers had the best of intentions, that's the way they were taught, and that teaching still moves on. And between addressing the women in implant dentistry and then teaching styles, that's the way that SmileFast Implants has a big focus on. So now you've come through, you're being an associate practice, you're delivering implants. I had the pleasure of mentoring you in the early days of that, and now you've superseded my abilities and on to bigger and better things. And you now come in, at the same time as you were going through all that, you became a partner in your own practice individually. First of all, do you want to just explain just what the attraction to that was for you, and how you found it since you became a partner at Dentistry Inclined?
The reason that I wanted to do the partnership was I am interested in the business side of things. I can see how it is a viable investment to have your own practice, or to have a bit of your own practice. However, time, as I was saying, is just something that's so precious. And again, I don't have much knowledge in that sort of side of things. So this sort of arrangement where I can be invested in the practice and have some involvement in it, but a lot of the headaches, sorry Mark, that come along with the practice ownership and everything like that are taken away, and then you have all the expertise, and especially through COVID, we couldn't have done that without you. So it's been the perfect arrangement for me in terms of, I don't want to have to really deal with all the admin side of things. I really want to just take that away, so I can, on the 3 years that I have, I can focus on the clinical work. And really the partnership as well has been great, because as you all say, you can be as involved as you like. Some people don't want to have any involvement in it, and I like to know a little bit of the key figures, but not to be totally drowned in the admin side of things. So you can tailor your involvement in it as much as you want.
Yeah, so you have your kind of I bring to you all the kind of headline stuff, things that we need to discuss. Do you feel that your point gets taken on board and listened to, and you have the say in all the and get your opinion across and the things that you feel are appropriate for you to be involved in and get the opportunity to learn and be part of anything that you're maybe not so as trained in as well, and the kind of things that I would deal with.
Yeah, definitely. I say that my involvement right now is exactly where I want to be, and I do know that if I wanted to be more involved and want to know more, that it is a very open book, and anything that I'd want would be answered, kind of thing. I don't feel like the wool has ever been pulled over my eyes or something's been hidden from me. I do feel very involved. Yeah.
And do you feel that, although being a dentist yourself, but we are still have a effectively a corporate model, do you still feel that the mix that we have, where the incumbent partners and incumbent associates and practices they still drive the clinical agenda for the practice, although that we will provide a framework of where we see creating the best results, and that a lot of that's led by our clinical director? Do you feel that you have a say? It's not a case of this is what you get, you'll just have to like it, that you get at some corporate models. What's your thoughts with that?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at each of the practices within the group, each does provide very different. A lot of them have the same services, but each one does have a variation on what treatments and services that they provide for their patients. I think that just shows that each practice is obviously tailored to its community that it's in as well, like the area and the population around it. Marketing and everything is very different for each practice, and I've never felt sort of restricted or I've never felt sort of controlled in any way. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's a good comment to make it, the way that each practice has their own identity and mix and what they provide. I see that as just the point I was making earlier, is that each individual practice will have individual dentists that have their thing that gets them up out of bed in the morning to excite them. And the more that we can create that, the more successful we will be as a company. And so it's not kind of spoon-fed you, this is what you have to do. Although there's always a part of general care and a bit of a mix of everything. Most dentists are generally happy to get involved, but they do have their niche that they get involved in. So now that it's not just dentists in the Clyde that you have shareholdings, you have shareholdings in another practice in the group, and I have no doubt that other ones in the future when you're ready. Where do you see the advantage of that is to you and to our future partners coming into the group?
Yeah, again, it's that opportunity which would probably not be given to me unless I was part of the group and with yourself, and having been able to make investments and having these opportunities of investments sort of offered. I can't see a different scenario where that would be given, where you can have just a little bit of involvement and a little bit of investment, but get big gains further down the line. And again, have someone like a mentor like yourself who's leading the way, which are good investments and which aren't. And yeah, it seems just a great opportunity that you wouldn't really get in many other different scenarios.
Okay, that's good to hear. And for somebody, so that's what a lot of people watching this will be, somebody who probably never met you or I before, and what a kind of what do you think the key things that somebody who's maybe considering coming to work alongside us, who maybe whether they do or don't have an ambition of coming as an associate that becomes a partner, what do you think the kind of key aspects of that they should know about what we do and how we work to get the best from our team and for them to be as happy as they possibly can within the role?
I think being part of the group, I think the key thing is the mentorship side of things. You're really supported along the way in terms of feeling encouraged to add more skills or strings to your bow. So doing further education, obviously you get access to discounts with courses and stuff as well. And the one-to-one sessions are really great as well for really helping you. Okay, you've achieved this goal here. What's your next goal going to be, and how can we help you achieve that goal? And sort of I feel really supported. And if I ever had an issue, that other people have got my back a little bit as well. And I think that's really important, rather than, because obviously dentistry can be such an isolating career. You can be stuck in those four walls and feel very lonely at times, but to have this almost like a bit of a family to help support you has been really, really important for myself. And then obviously the opportunities that you have to then invest possibly in the future. And and become a partner in a really sort of less hassle kind of way has been really attractive.
Yeah, it's a kind of mutually beneficial. We obviously have a management team that deal with the kind of non-clinical issues, and have a clinical team and a clinical director to support everybody as they, depending on what level that they're kind of that they're going through at the time. So just to kind of round things up, you've obviously some recent changes and things in your own personal circumstances and other opportunities and things that have recently come up for you. What's your kind of goals and ambitions going forward, and where do you see that the group's going to support you along that way?
I really see, so yeah, I'm going to be going off on my second mat leave very soon, and coming back, being able to again focus even more on doing implants, and again being able to be confident on delegating some treatments to fellow associates or to our therapists, and really growing that sort of therapist model. So the days that I'm in are even more productive with the three days that I have. And then again, as you were saying, possibly then reinvesting back into being partnering even more practices along the lines. You've got like a lovely portfolio of investments that you have for the future.
Great, bro. Yeah, there's no limitation. We are a kind of low borrowing group. There's no limitation to where we're moving forward, other than who and how much people want to invest in for the partners' future. So with more partners hopefully joining us this year, we expect to continue our growth as we head we're slightly further afield in Scotland, and are soon to be into Northern England. We expect growth there. So you're definitely going to be a big part of that. So